Welcome to today's webinar, Using Online Events to Engage and Attract Young People. My name is Sonia Krutwagen, and I am the Manager of Marketing and Digital Strategies at the National Trust for Canada and the lead for Canada Historic Places Days. I'm pleased to be participating today from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Nationale people. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us today. We're very excited to have this session, to have you all on the line. If you're willing, why don't you consider telling us where you are right now, and tell all the attendees who will be using the chat function if you've participated in Historic Places Days before, and if you've hosted an event. That'd be interesting. Today's session will be very informal. We'll end the webinar before the hour. If there are any remaining questions at the end of the hour, feel free to reach out to our panelists today directly. There's going to be emails at the end of the webinar, and in the follow-up email, there'll be a recording and the emails of today's presenters. Feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions and the chat function to communicate with us. Just a word about the National Trust for Canada. We're the lead partner for Canada Historic Places Days and pleased to be working with our colleagues at Parks Canada. Historic Places Days is really the perfect partnership for the Trust and Parks Canada because we both care passionately about historic places, and more importantly, about attracting a broader audience to these places that matter to all of us. For the Trust, Canada Historic Places Days is part of a series of programs, including Launchpad, Regeneration Works, and our annual conference that are all designed to help strengthen and support people and organizations who are involved in keeping great historic places open and available to the public. This webinar is being presented today by the Youth Advisory Board for Canada Historic Places Days, and we're very grateful to our colleagues who volunteer their time to share their professional experience and help in adding a youthful perspective to the event. I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Julia Feldner, who is Special Project Assistant for this year's Canada Historic Places Days, and will be telling you more about the celebration.
Thank you, Sonia. So one of the ways the National Trust highlights and celebrates the historic places throughout Canada is through Canada Historic Places Days. Some of you may have participated in this annual event before, as we will be running it for the 5th time this year for the full month of July. Historic Places Days is all about increasing visitation to historic places, virtual or in person, depending on your local health guidelines. Some sites may not be open to the public, yet by participating in Historic Places Days, visitors can still enjoy your site through virtual experiences and plan for future in-person encounters. As such, this is your opportunity to connect your site to a national marketing campaign and a larger audience to raise awareness for your special place and spark meaningful connections with Canadians. Whether you host an event in person or online, it is important to use accessible online platforms, social media, and promotional tools to attract and engage members of the public. For many historic sites, engaging youth can be challenging, but with a strong online presence, historic places have a better chance of attracting young heritage enthusiasts. Last year, over 477 historic places participated in Canada Historic Places Day. 2 million impressions were made through the media, and 4.6 million Canadians were reached through social media alone. A giveaway and selfie contest, as well as an added feature on the Canada Historic Places Days website called Visit Lists, a feature that provided Canadians the opportunity to create different themed lists of historic places they want to visit or have visited, provided additional excitement and virtual engagement. These contests and features will be continuing this year. Here are some social media examples from past Historic Places Days created by families and organizations we've partnered with. Lauren will be going into more detail later in the presentation to show various ways historic places specifically campaigned for Historic Places Days and the different virtual events they held. In the digital age, social media and virtual marketing are valuable tools in capturing and keeping the attention of Canadians, especially those within the younger generations. In the following webinar, we'll be providing you with some tips and tricks that will assist you in advertising and carrying out an event, virtual or otherwise, so you can have a spotlight on your historic place. I'll now be passing it over to Catherine, a youth ambassador from Parks Canada, who will discuss what motivates youth when it comes to connecting virtually with historic places.
Thank you for the introduction, Sonia and Julia. Avant de débuter le webinaire, nous tenons à souligner qu'une version française de la présentation sera disponible dans les prochaines semaines sur le site Internet de la Journée des lieux patrimoniaux du Canada. Toutefois, si vous avez des questions en français aujourd'hui, nous serons plus qu'heureuses d'y répondre. So if you're here, it's likely because you want to know how to create an event that will interest young people. In a few minutes, Irene is going to explain some of the tech that you can use to create these events, but first, we're going to talk about the youth you're trying to attract. Understanding their motivations will lay the groundwork for your events, help you form ideas about interesting themes or topics, and perhaps even help you better understand how to develop your membership, attendance rates, or even volunteer count among young people in the long term. We have two main motivations that I will divide in subcategories. First, personal interest, and second, professional interest. The subcategories include the experiences, community, network, and brand. This will all be included in a tip sheet that the National Trust will be sending out for following the presentation. So let's jump in. The first motivation is quite clear. Young people have a genuine curiosity about history and historic places in general. Not all of them, of course, but the ones who do are primed to engage with your organization. They like understanding the past. Next is experiences. Youth consider them like a currency. This is especially important to keep in mind right now during the pandemic, as many other activities and events have been made impossible. This also applies strongly to young families with kids who want to teach them about history while also entertaining them. The next motivation is community. With history being a somewhat niche topic among teens and young adults, you can expect to find those who do enjoy learning about the past, going out of their way to join clubs, societies, or even social media pages to meet and engage with other like-minded people. That brings us to our second topic, professional interest. As many of us begin our careers, we will go out of our way to find advice or lessons that we feel can put us on the right path. We want to make personal connections that could one day provide career opportunities and learn from the career paths of others and transform them into professional interests. Of course, youth are infamous for caring about the image they project. They do so by sharing content, generally on social media, that makes them look good and gives them recognition for doing something that others might deem impressive in some way. This might be in order to make a professional headway, though for many, this is their main way that they express themselves and share their interests. And finally, we have exclusivity. Young people like things that are secret or limited. Whether this is an event only afforded to members or access to a person or place that would otherwise be hard to reach, young people like to feel as they're getting the special treatment. Now you may be wondering, why does this matter? If you want to hold an event that is attractive and interesting to youth, and perhaps even younger generations, you need to make sure that you're feeding into these key motivations. This applies to in-person events just as much as online events. Now in a little bit, my colleagues are going to explain how these pieces fit together and give you examples of events that fit each of these motivations while also furthering your own organizational goals. But first, Irene, a board member for Architectural Conservancy of Ontario and a previous coordinator for National Historic Places Day, will spend a couple minutes introducing you to some of the technology that you could consider using while putting together an event for youth.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So now that you understand why young people might be interested in attending your events, let's talk about actually planning one. Let's go through the platform options and which one is right for your event. So by now, you've probably attended virtual meetings and events and are familiar with the most popular platforms. And here I've listed the ones I'm going to discuss in more detail today. So keep in mind that your first step should be to check with your organization to see if you're already paying for an account on any event hosting platform. If you're not, that's okay. There are plenty of free options available as well. I don't recommend buying an advanced package just for a single event, but if your organization is already paying for an account, then it is certainly a good choice for your event. So above all, as you may know, the most popular hosting website to come out of 2020 is Zoom, and alas, we are using it right now. The free account allows you to meet up with 100 people for 40 minutes. And the paid option can hold up to 100 people for 30 hours or even more, depending on your package. It also allows you to share your screen, use a chat box, and use video. You can make your event private by adding a password, and Zoom doesn't require any special downloads. However, if your organization doesn't have a paid Zoom account and you don't want to be confined by that 40-minute limit, you could also consider using Google Meet. Similarly, you can host up to 100 people for free on this platform, up to 24 hours. And Google Meet has most of the same basic features as Zoom. However, you can't record your event. And while Zoom and Google Meet are ideal for using on a computer, Instagram and Google Live are ideal for use on a phone. So both accounts require you to log in to your Instagram or Facebook account, and your followers will receive a notification that you're going live. And both have 4-hour streaming limits, and one big benefit is that you'll have the option to save the recording to your page to share with your followers to watch later. So which of these options should you use? First of all, look at what sort of event you'll be hosting to determine if you want a computer-based platform or a phone-based platform. If you expect to be sitting down for the event, you want a more serious tone, it's something educational, or if you want to have slides running in the background, similar to today's event, you might want to choose a computer-based event like Zoom or Google Meet. So computer-based platforms, they usually get a higher turnout because they're easier to promote, and you can send a link that will add a notification straight into people's calendars so they're reminded of your event. And because you can easily have different people speaking as we are today, it makes collaborative events easier. On the other hand, mobile-based platforms are great if you're going to be on your feet, like if you're giving a tour of your historic site. They can be more difficult to plan as you can't send out a specific link with the meeting and the time. However, you can still promote the event with your followers on social media or in your newsletters ahead of time and give them a link to your social media and tell them when they can join in. And as I mentioned before, you'll have great content that you can share afterwards. And the recording of the video of the event often gets much more traction than the original event itself. If you are considering doing a mobile event, keep in mind that more young people generally use Instagram than Facebook. So you would likely reach a greater proportion of young people if you go on Instagram Live. However, you should take a look and see how big your following is on each platform to determine what makes sense for your organization. So once you've decided where you're going to host your event, you have to plan your promotion. So there are 3 basic steps. First, you're going to make some basic promotional materials that you can use to share on your platforms. Then you'll set up an event registration page or a landing page. And finally, you'll promote it to your audience. So first of all, you're going to want to grab people's attention and tell them the basics of your event with a great visual. I recommend using Canva to create some simple and cohesive visuals that you can put up on all of your social media feeds, your newsletters, and anywhere else that you'd like to promote your event. Canva is a free graphic design website that is very simple to use, and it provides pre-formatted templates for every size you may need, like a Facebook post, an Instagram story, or an email banner. I recommend using an interesting photograph and some bold text with just the event title and the time and date. The rest of the information should go in the caption or the body of wherever you're promoting. And avoid writing the URLs, as these can be put in the caption or the body instead. And here are some examples of some great ads that have been put together by the National Trust's team for Canada Historic Places Day. So once you have your visuals, it's time to create a landing page. This is where your audience can come to get more information about your event, register, or find out how to attend it. So you might already have a web page for your organization already set up to do this, as does the National Trust, and you can see the example of that here. This gives you a place to put the event link, and it's a way to share through social media or other promotions a URL for your guests to figure out how they can attend. If you don't have a page on your website, you might want to consider creating an Eventbrite page, which is another free platform to serve as your landing page. So when promoting your event, you will send registrants the link to your Eventbrite event, and Eventbrite will send a reminder the day before and 10 minutes before your event, which is a huge benefit. You can also keep track of how many people have signed up for your event. And if you're going to use Eventbrite, you will also need to make a banner visual of the dimensions that you see on your screen. Oh, whoops. And the other benefit of using Eventbrite is that it will remind your guests of your event by putting a calendar invite right into their calendar. So once you have a landing page with a URL that you can send out to your followers, it's time to spread the word about your event. So the first place to share it is in any regular email communications you may have with your community, like a newsletter. So in this newsletter, provide a brief description, the date, the time, and the link to the Zoom event or to the registration page. And this email should go out about a week before your event. Then you're going to want to put it up on social media. Put up a post about 1 week before the event, telling your followers how they can register. And then in the days leading up to your event, you're going to want to put up a story. And Instagram is the most useful platform for these promotions. One thing to keep in mind is that you can't link an image from your social media. So what you'll have to do is open your social media, click Edit Profile, as you can see up with this first arrow here, and it will open your profile, and then you can replace where it says website with the URL of your landing page of how your guests can register for your event. And finally, I'm sure that many of you are familiar with TikTok. While it's a great platform to engage with your audience, and perhaps something we could discuss at a later date, for this purpose, it is not a great event to promote. It's not a great platform to promote your event because there's no way to send links or have anyone register. So now we're going to take a break from technology and look at how to choose an event style and topic that will interest young people, as well as helping you to meet your own organizational goals. Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren, another project assistant for the National Trust for Canada. I'm Zooming from Edmonton on Territory 6 land. So using the information Irene has shared concerning social media platforms and promoting your site, it's important to think about what kind of event you'll be holding. How will this event help you attain your organization's goals? And how will this event foster interest in your historic place and its narrative? When planning an event, it's important to think about the youth motivations previously mentioned, the personal and/or professional interests they may have. Sharing an interesting story about your site can be as simple as an Instagram story or post, or something more in-depth and informative like a webinar or live event. And this is a great way to pique interest in your site. And with this new emphasis on social media comes exclusive and behind-the-scenes experiences for your audience. Use their desire for exclusivity to give them a special peek at something that isn't usually for visitors or something that's usually overlooked. You could give a behind-the-scenes tour of your historic site or museum and show them areas which are off limits, if possible, like a museum's artifact storage room or small details of a historic building that people don't usually see.
or feature a particular artifact that has never been seen before or that tells an interesting story on social media. Similar to what you might do for in-person events, teaching a skill through a webinar or Facebook or Instagram Live is a great way to engage your audience. Sharing old recipes, knowledge about gardening, or how to use a mysterious artifact can pique interest in your site and what it has to offer. Creating engaging and interesting social media posts or virtual events will make people excited about your site and eager to visit when or if it's safe to do so, or follow your social media pages for more interesting posts. Virtual events help build interest in your historic site, but they also help you build your brand and community. Social media helps your audience grow, exposing your site to people from coast to coast to coast. Perhaps you want to build your brand awareness. Here you're going to think about 3 motivations: community, networking, and brand. You really want to show your audience that you're not just a name or social media account, but real people running an organization who wants to engage with them. This might mean hosting an interview with a senior member of staff about running your historic site, or having an expert discuss a career path or other career-related advice. You can make full use of question and answer features in webinars to allow young people to get involved by asking questions, or give them the opportunity to share their own experiences. If webinars are more than you want to commit to for a simpler technological solution, you could plan an Instagram series that has interactive segments like polls. And if you want to attract volunteers, you could highlight the work done by your volunteers on social media pages and interview them about how they became a volunteer and what they enjoy about volunteering for your historic site. With the COVID-19 pandemic, Canada Historic Places Day went virtual last summer and invited historic sites to virtually celebrate through the platforms mentioned. This summer is a similar approach, so we're able to look back at last summer for examples of online events and how to successfully engage your audience online. Regardless of provincial health and safety regulations, adopting some kind of social media presence and online events is a great way to build a following and expose your site to Canadians everywhere. Huron County Museum and Historic Jail temporarily closed last summer due to COVID, but it embraced Canada Historic Places Day going virtual and offered behind-the-scenes virtual elements to engage their audience. Utilizing multiple platforms, the museum hosted Facebook and Instagram Lives for sneak peek tours of the historic site, as well an online Q&A with the curator from inside the jail, which was held on Zoom. This Q&A was a chance to ask fun questions, like, is the jail haunted? Why do you spell jail with a G? Has anyone ever escaped? As well, it opens up channels to ask about professional career questions. These virtual events were held multiple times throughout the day, so if you weren't able to make it to one, you could try and make it to another showing. Next slide, oh, thank you. And I thought it might be good to look at the social media accounts for the Huron County Museum, since they utilize multiple platforms, which enables them to have a broader audience, as well as someone who looked at their Instagram page and learned about the site not too long ago. I found it very informative, but interesting and easy to read. I really liked the stories they had, as well as what it is it Wednesday post, which identifies odd artifacts. They do a great job at promoting events and partnerships within the community. And even though I've highlighted a few successful elements of their Instagram account, as mentioned, they do utilize Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to share their story as well. And then a few more examples, because a lot of sites really took advantage of online elements last year and did a great job. It's What's Cooking Wednesday with the Roadie House Museum. So every Wednesday in July, the Roadie House shared educational videos from their historic kitchen. Dressed in era-appropriate costume, their summer student taught viewers about cooking, laundry, and other aspects of domestic life in the late 19th and early 20th centuries using Instagram and Facebook. The virtual home and garden tour at Mahone Bay Museum was usually or traditionally an in-person tour and fundraiser event, but due to COVID-19, Mahone Bay Museum wanted to share the beauty of their site for free. So launching on the same day as Historic Places Days, there was a video available to watch on Facebook and YouTube, and the video was available after the launch date as well, for whenever you need a relaxing moment to be reminded that the sun can shine and that Mahone Bay and surrounding area is a beautiful place. And lastly, Wellness at Home with Dr. Sonia Tsen, Classical Chinese Garden. Using Canada Historic Places Day as a promotion platform and embracing virtual events, the Classical Chinese Garden hosted virtual yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, and Kung Fu classes on Zoom. For this event, you would purchase a package of classes and you could enjoy the tranquility of the world's top city garden named by National Geographic in 2011. The Classical Chinese Garden is very beautiful, and for many people, a quick trip to Vancouver, let alone during a pandemic, isn't super easy. So this opportunity to enjoy this site and many others, including yours, virtually is very exciting to Canadians everywhere. So next, Lauren, who is a member of the Canada Historic Places Day Youth Advisory Committee, will talk about digital accessibility and hosting hybrid events.
Thank you very much, Lauren, and hello, everyone. Now that we've had a chance to talk about how we can host and promote events virtually, I'd like to take some time to discuss how we can ensure that this digital content is accessible to all. Digital accessibility, meaning accessibility online, allows all people to be able to experience your content by removing barriers to access. Today, I'm speaking about accessibility mainly as it pertains to disability. That being said, digital accessibility also makes your content more financially and linguistically accessible. This accessibility needs to start with your promotional materials. I'll also note that these tips can and should be used for any non-promotional content that your site releases online as well. Before I get started into this slide, I'd like to note that the image on the side of the person in a blue circle with their arms stretched out wide is kind of the commonly accepted icon for digital accessibility. So if you are looking for accessibility settings on websites or on your social media platforms, that's a good icon to look for. Now, here are some tips for helping to make sure that all of your promotions and digital content are accessible. If you're including images or video in your social media posts, on your slides if you're preparing a slideshow, or within an email or newsletter, adding alternative text and image descriptions will allow people who are blind or have low vision to enjoy your visual content. Alternative text, which is often referred to as alt text, describes the image that you're sharing. It's not visible to viewers, but will be read aloud by a screen reader if one is employed. This text can be added to social media posts before or after posting and can be embedded into documents while they're in the editing phase. Most social media platforms have accessibility guides online that you can find if you search for them that can direct you on how to write alt text within their app or website. Image descriptions similarly describe the contents of an image or video. They're conventionally added to posts within the caption or comment section. Both alt text and image descriptions can be as detailed as you like, but you should make a point to include any text that is within the image so that those using the descriptions will be able to glean the same information that they would if they were able to see them clearly. Captioning your video content allows people who are deaf or hard of hearing to enjoy it and to understand it. Many social media platforms, including YouTube and Facebook, have built-in captioning tools. There are also many websites and applications that can help you to caption videos yourself if there are no auto captions available. In addition to making your content accessible to those who are unable to hear it, captioning videos has been proven to increase post engagement across all audiences and platforms. And while we're on the topic of video content, it's also a good idea to describe out loud what is going on in your video. This could be as simple as introducing yourself and your location at the beginning of a clip and mentioning any significant item that you're displaying, such as an artifact that you may be holding. By doing so, you're making it easier for those with visual impairments to understand your content. These methods help to remove any barriers that are inherent within your digital content, but you can also work to improve the content itself. We will now take a second to look at how we can optimize images like the ones you may be sharing for accessibility. On the screen here, you can see two versions of the same post. The image on the left has a light blue background with a slightly darker title that reads accessible content. In the center of the graphic is an image of the accessibility symbol on a sign with an arrow pointing right. And in three text boxes, all at various angles, in black text reads, caption your videos, avoid text overlapping images, include image descriptions. This graphic is fairly inaccessible. The text has very low contrast with the background, is scattered across the screen, and overlaps the image, making it difficult to read. The image on the right shares the same information. However, the white text used stands out much clearer on the dark blue background, and the text is right aligned and arranged in bullet points. This style of text is not only easier to see, but is also easier to read for those with learning disabilities. The image is also clearer due to the absence of overlapping text. Some key things to remember when designing graphics for your promotions are using high contrast colors for text. You can use contrast checkers on the internet to make sure that the colors that you have chosen are sufficiently different to be easy to read. Minimizing the amount of text on screen and making sure that it is right aligned and broken into bullet points or smaller paragraphs when possible, and choosing clear images that are not interrupted by text. Now that we've gone over how to make our promotions accessible, let's talk about how to ensure that our online events are as well. An important first step in this regard is to allow participants to submit accessibility requirements in advance so that you can ensure that their needs will be met. This can look like having a box within your registration form that asks how the event can best be made accessible to the participant registering, or even just including the contact information of a person at your site that participants can reach out to with accessibility requests. Choosing accessible platforms on which to host your events is also important. Zoom, Google Meets, and Microsoft Teams are both video conferencing platforms that we've already talked about today that will allow for live captioning for deaf or hard of hearing participants and are screen reader accessible. If you're hosting a live stream, an app like Facebook now allows you to have live captioning if you set it up in advance, and I believe that Instagram is working towards a similar system. Offering multiple modes of participation within your events, if you're hoping for them to be interactive, gives participants more ways to engage without limiting them to the ones that may be inaccessible. This could look like inviting questions or comments within the chat, as well as offering participants the chance to unmute themselves to share. And like with anything, practice makes progress. I recommend taking the time, if you have time, to do a practice run with your technology in advance of your event. While you do so, make sure that any accessibility software like live captioning is available, enabled, and working, that your audio has as little feedback as possible to make it easier to hear, and that your face, if you're on screen, is clearly visible and well lit to make your lips and expressions easier to read. This has been a very brief overview of digital accessibility, and I encourage you to utilize some of the amazing resources that are available online to further your understanding and to make your content more accessible. I also strongly urge you to listen to and to work with the disabled people working in the heritage field and within your community to help make your site and content as accessible as possible. As we enter a time of reopening or semi-reopening, depending on where you are and when you're watching this, the potential for having in-person events is growing. That doesn't mean that we need to stop doing online events. And I'd like to take a second here just to remind you to be aware of and to follow your local health guidelines when it comes to in-person events. Hybrid events that incorporate both in-person and online elements can help to increase your engagement. They also make your in-person events more accessible to those who would be unable to participate on site. The following are some ways that you could hybridize your events. One of the most simple would be to record and to post the event or a part of the event after the fact. You could also live stream a significant part of the event, such as a demonstration or presentation. And another way that ties into some of our reasons for engagement section, which Catherine discussed earlier, would be to share some of the behind the scenes content about your event. That could include something like how you set up for an event or a particular element of the event and how it is being run. I'll now turn it back over to Julia to share some more about the resources that are available to you.
Thank you, Lauren. So that actually concludes our webinar on using online events to engage and attract young people. If you would like some additional resources to help promote your historic place and your involvement in Canada Historic Places Days, you can find logos, posters, toolkits, webinars, videos, and information about contests on the Canada Historic Places Days website. We'll now be opening the floor to questions.
And feel free to ask any questions that you have either through the question and answer Q&A function, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen, or through the chat.
Well, if there are no questions, you can feel free to also reach out to any of the panelists. Our emails are included in the presentation slide, which will be available shortly after the end of the webinar. So thanks for coming, everyone.